Welcome to today's Wisdom du Jour explainer. Look, today we're diving into a profoundly common yet highly private distress. It's this feeling of still being totally functional. You're getting the day done, answering the emails, keeping the plate spinning, but feeling entirely disconnected from who you used to be. It's that quiet, persistent, internal whisper that just says, man, I don't recognize myself lately.
If you're out there checking all the boxes, showing up for work, managing the household mental load, being the absolute anchor for your family, I need you to know you are not alone. You see, from the outside, there's no dramatic crisis. And because you still look so unbelievably competent, you might actually be minimizing what the week is really costing you. You kind of tell yourself, well, the day got done, so I must be fine, right? But privately, something feels distinctly off. This duality is exactly what we call the self-recognition loss pattern. It's almost like living a double life. The outside story looks totally fine. You show up, you look put together, you manage the day. But the inside story is a completely different reality. That inside story involves shrinking yourself down, delaying tasks until the last possible second, physically bracing your body for just routine events, bargaining with yourself to do normal things, and constantly translating your actual feelings into smaller, safer language so you don't rock the boat. The outside is totally intact, but the inside, well, it's becoming a lot harder to trust. To make this super concrete, let's look at a few highly specific moments that might hit a little close to home. We usually view these as random, isolated personal failures. Like maybe you forget a perfectly familiar word under pressure, and that tiny blank space haunts you for hours. Or you get that anticipatory dread. The workday hasn't even started, but just the thought of opening the laptop feels like climbing Everest. Or threshold bargaining. You genuinely wanted to go to that social event, but when it's time to actually put your shoes on and walk out the door, your whole body starts negotiating like a lawyer for relief. Or, and this is a big one, maybe you rewrite and minimize your symptoms right before a doctor's appointment, shrinking your story before anyone even has the chance to dismiss it. It's so easy to judge ourselves for those moments, isn't it? But listen to this. These are not isolated incidents. They're not random flaws in your character. As the quote says, you might still look functional, but more and more of your week is built around bracing, shrinking, delaying, or translating yourself. These are actually just different entry points into one much larger pattern. It's the pattern of losing contact with yourself while working incredibly hard just to stay usable to the people around you. So how do we understand why this happens? And crucially, how do we do it without shaming ourselves? We use something called the TAM framework. Now, let me be absolutely 100% clear here. TAM is an explanatory reflection tool. It is not a medical diagnosis, and it doesn't replace medical care. It's simply a lens that reveals the highly intelligent, protective logic behind our exhaustion. It shows us exactly why our pattern made sense before asking us to go and change it. TAM stands for Trigger, Adaptation, Cost, and Mastery. We're going to map this out step by step together, moving from that initial spark of stress all the way down to a practical, honest next step you can actually use today. Okay, part 1. Trigger and adaptation. The protective logic of functioning. The really crucial point here is that a trigger isn't usually some massive cinematic trauma. It's actually cumulative pressure plus one perfectly ordinary moment that finally reveals the heavy loads you've been carrying. It's the result of having way too little margin and way too much invisible load, until a single, everyday demand just tips the scale. The trigger is simply the exact moment the internal shift becomes visible. It's the second that familiar word won't arrive on your tongue. It's the moment an email pings before your body has had even a second to recover from the last task. It's the doorway that suddenly feels physically impossible to walk through, or sitting in the waiting room where your body starts bracing for disbelief from a doctor. The trigger simply makes the invisible pressure visible. And right after that trigger hits, you adapt. And honestly, this adaptation is a brilliant, highly intelligent, short-term survival mechanism. Your system immediately prioritizes preserving your function and your credibility. You adapt to keep the outside story totally usable, even if the inside story is literally falling apart. Your brain is just saying, hey, we have to keep moving. So how do you actually do that? Well, you keep the day moving. You quickly fill the awkward silence, so everyone thinks you're fine. You act normal way faster than you actually feel normal. You hover or delay or bargain with your next step just to scrape together a tiny bit of energy. You translate an absolutely exhausting week into smaller, much safer language, saying, I'm just a little tired, instead of, I feel completely hollowed out, just so people won't question your competence. I really want this to sink in for you, Continued functioning is not proof that you are fine. Functioning is the adaptation. Looking fine and carrying your responsibilities doesn't somehow magically mean your internal struggle isn't real. Staying functional is exactly how you are adapting to the overload. The functioning is the mask. Which brings us to part 2, the hidden cost and the slow erosion of self-trust. Because the real toll of this entire cycle isn't just that fleeting panic of a forgotten word or the brief spike of dread when you look at your laptop. The true hidden cost is what spreads long after that visible moment ends. The real cost is what happens in the quiet. Think about it. Because you're constantly editing yourself to appear competent, look at what happens over time. You slowly stop trusting your own internal signals. You jump to shame as so much faster. You feel bizarre, intense amounts of friction around completely ordinary tasks, like suddenly viewing a basket of clean laundry as this insurmountable, hostile entity. You start telling a softer, heavily edited truth about what's actually going on. And ultimately, you create a massive, widening gap between the reality of your lived experience and what you actually say out loud to the world. Just because you can force yourself to cross the finish line every day does not mean your internal cost is low. Still functioning is not the same as recoverability. When you ignore this invisible effort, when you dismiss how much raw energy it takes just to appear normal, well, that is exactly why you end up feeling so completely lost and disconnected from yourself. All right, part 3, mastery and next steps. Early recognition without the shame. Getting out of this loop starts by totally redefining what success actually looks like. Mastery isn't about perfectly fixing yourself. It's not about pretending this pattern will instantly vanish just because you listen to this explainer today. Mastery is simply about noticing the loop a little bit earlier and then choosing a truer, more honest response. It's about clarity, not perfection. True mastery means noticing the sequence before shame convinces you that this is a personal failing or somehow evidence of a broken identity. It means mapping the whole loop, the trigger, the adaptation, the cost, not just fixating on the moment you snapped or forgot a word. It means finally treating your hidden, invisible effort as a real, measurable cost. And it means choosing just one honest, low-pressure action for reflection instead of attacking yourself. Now, you might be sitting there listening to this and thinking, okay, wow, I see the pattern. But seriously, where do I even start? The very first step is incredibly simple. Pause, breathe, and get language for the pattern before you try to fix yourself. Actually, scratch that. Don't try to fix yourself at all. Just give yourself the vocabulary to understand exactly how your specific loop works, rather than rushing to diagnose or cure or optimize yourself. You absolutely need a map before you can find your way out. So your next move is just to use the free 2-minute pattern map. It lets you literally map out your own triggers and adaptations without any heavy homework. Just take 2 minutes today to lay it all out. Ask yourself, what is the true price you're paying just to look perfectly fine? Thank you so much for joining me on this explainer, and I highly, highly encourage you to take that one small step today. Catch you next time.